All right, how's it going, guys? Today I'm going to do a short reaction of Mark Zuckerberg on Lex Fridman. He was on his pod not too long ago. I was just checking it out myself, and as I was scrolling through the tabs here, I noticed that Lex had a question for Mark at the end regarding faith. So I was like, you know what? Let's set up the mic and react to it with you guys because I feel like this is probably a side of Mark we typically don't see very often. I'm curious about the route he's going to take with this question and what his mindset is. Let's just get right into it.
So, you're a man of faith. What role has faith played in your life, in your understanding of the world, and your understanding of your own life, and your understanding of your work, and how your work impacts the world?
Yeah, I think that there's a few different parts of this that are relevant. There's sort of a philosophical part and there's a cultural part. I mean, one of the most basic lessons is right at the beginning of Genesis, right? It's like God creates the earth and creates people in God's image. And there's the question of, what does that mean? And the only context that you have about God at that point in the Old Testament is that God has created things. So I always thought that like one of the interesting lessons from that is that there's a virtue in creating things that is like, whether it's artistic or whether you're building things that are functionally useful for other people. I think that by itself is a good. And that kind of drives a lot of how I think about morality and my personal philosophy around like what is a good life, right? I think it's one where you're helping the people around you and you're being a kind of positive creative force in the world that is helping to bring new things into the world, whether they're amazing other people, kids, or just leading to the creation of different things that wouldn't have been possible otherwise. And so that's a value for me that matters deeply.
One thing that I want to say right off the bat is that I find it so intriguing, so fascinating. It just never fails that almost every time I do one of these episodes, it seems like the guest or the host, whoever it is, inadvertently refers to philosophy without us even having to refer to it in the first place. And if you don't already know, this channel is largely based on diving into the philosophy behind the arts, the artists, the creation, anything that we're exploring and navigating in each episode here, whether it be through the podcast, through reaction, a video that we choose to explore that has cultural relevance, anything of the liking. But nonetheless, let's look more into exactly what he had just depicted right there with regards to faith, and that he said that there is something pure, there is something good about creating, and it seems to have some reminiscence of the creation of life itself, as he referred to in Genesis here. And I do think that that's a premise I could get behind, and that creation in and of itself is something that's so inherent within us. It is in that seeking, in that covet to explore, to expand, to evolve, and to create among that process. So I think that I definitely adhere to what he would be saying there, and I see that in reflections of my life and people around me, and that we feel our best when we're creating. I think the bigger question here now is trying to understand if what we're creating itself is natural. And I feel like this opens up a Pandora's box of so many other questions regarding, of course, as we hear constantly about today, is AI. And is AI natural? We see it as some synthetic species or a synthetic act that we're pursuing, and it very well may be, but at the same token, maybe it's inevitable. Maybe an intelligent, I don't know if we're really that smart, but for the sake of conversation, we'll say that we're an intelligent species creating an intelligent species, and maybe that would happen regardless. Intelligence may breed just more intelligence in other forms. So I think that the question there is to understand what it is what natural means in the first place, and then also from there understanding, does what we're creating align with that basis of what it means to be natural? Does it have to be conducive to human values, to human behavior, to the succession of our own evolution itself? Perhaps, right? But I do admire that philosophy, I must say, that creation in and of itself is pure, that creation is synonymous with the nature of life, with a God, if you may, with having faith in something. So it was cool that he went that route, and I'm curious what you have to say about creation in and of itself.
I just love, spending time with the kids and seeing that they sort of, trying to impart this value to them. And, it's like, nothing makes me happier than like when I come home from work and, I see like my daughter's like building Legos on the table or something. It's like, all right, I did that when I was a kid, right? So many other people are doing this. And like, I hope you don't lose that spirit where when you kind of grow up and you want to just continue building different things.
Quickly, who's still building Legos? I haven't done it in so long. I kind of want to now, but I think there's a lot of Lego builders still out there.
Or what it is. To me, that's a lot of what matters. That's the philosophical piece. I think the cultural piece is just about community and values, and that part of things I think has just become a lot more important to me since I've had kids. It's almost autopilot when you're a kid. You're in the kind of getting imparted to phase of your life, but and I didn't really think about religion that much for a while. I was in college, before I had kids, and then I think having kids has this way of really making you think about what traditions you want to impart and how you want to celebrate and like what balance you want in your life. And I mean, a bunch of the questions that you've asked and a bunch of the things that we're talking about.
Just the irony of the curtains coming down as we're talking about mortality. But once again,
No
same
way.
as last time. This is just that the universe works in. We are definitely living in a simulation, but
Now begging another question. Well, he just referred to simulation at the end there. I'm not going to dig into that in this video. You could definitely let me know what you think about that and if we really are living in a simulation. But this right here also begs the question of synchronicity. Do we believe that synchronicity is real? Do we believe that there is a such thing as coincidence? Can those things be intertwined? And these are the types of questions that I think enable us to understand more about the philosophy behind the art of nature, the art of creation. But it's just a silly little remark here to laugh at.
but go ahead. Community, tradition, and values.
He's just out of it.
Faith,
Well, I mean,
religion is still.
a lot of the topics that we've talked about today are around how do you balance, whether it's running a company or different responsibilities with this. I don't know. Yeah, how do you kind of balance that? And I always also just think that it's very grounding to just believe that there is something that is much bigger than you that is guiding things.
That, amongst other things, gives you a bit of humility. As you pursue that spirit of creating that you spoke to, creating beauty in the world. And as Dostoevsky said, beauty will save the world. Mark,
Dostoevsky.
I'm a huge fan of yours.
I find that pretty cool. I think that's a very noble ending to that pod. And I definitely think that there's humility in thinking that there's something grander than you. It doesn't point you as the center of the universe, but instead an incumbent of the universe, and you feel much more connected that way. I just hope that in that mindset, you don't alleviate all your responsibilities onto someone or something else, thinking like, oh, life will just take care of itself. And I feel like I have used that phrase in my life before, and it does feel good, but sometimes you need to be the first mover in your life, right? You need to find that fire within you to allow the synchronicities to occur, to allow life to guide you, whatever it may be, if it has a plan or not, and to be in sync with who you are as a person and instead of just sitting back and waiting for the ride to start. But I think the philosophical component here is really figuring out the right questions to dissect what these things mean to us, such as nature, normal, faith, anything that has a presupposition attached to it that we haven't questioned before. And I think that'll get us to greater heights and deeper depths in our lives. So we'll see. It's pretty cool to see Mark this way. I'm curious if he really believes all this. He's human at the end of the day, right? Well, maybe, right? But we'll leave it there. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you on the next one.